YouTube? I'm back again today for another game review, and today I'm very excited to check out Dream On from CMON. This is for 2 to 8 players, take about 15 to 20 minutes to play, and it's for ages 7+. And in Dream On, this is a storytelling memory game where you're going to be working cooperatively to weave together a story of what you dreamed of last night and then try to score points by remembering what other people said about that said dream. It's completely different, it's completely out there, but is it completely good? Let's open it up and I'll tell you what I think. Alrighty then, we're going to take a look at what's going to get inside of Dream On. So first and foremost, we have our handy dandy rule booklet. It is 8 pages, double-sided, full color, full of pictures, illustrations, examples, and it's very well done. It should have you up and running in no time at all. I think it's a little long in the tooth, but that's a good thing because it teaches you how to play the game very well. I can also teach you how to play right now because it's an incredibly simple game. So in Dream On, for some reason, you and a bunch of other people have had this dream, and you're trying to all recall the same dream that every single person at the table had. It's a very simple storytelling / memory game in which you're actually going to score points based on how much you can remember by yourself, with your team, and unfortunately when you get things wrong. What am I talking about? Let's go over the components. We'll get into the gameplay. So the start of the shows are going to be these cards right here, which are just going to have various different pictures on them. Socks, snails, mushrooms, luggage, all sorts of various different things. And these are really just going to be leaping pads for you to tell and weave together a creative story with your friends. So you're going to get a whole bunch of these cards. Up top, you're going to have +2, +1, and -2, because after you've told your entire story and the time has ran out, you are going to try and retell your story as a group, one at a time. If you were able to successfully tell the next card and what happens in the story without any help, you'll get +2 points. If you need help from someone who's playing the game, you'll get +1 point, and if you get it completely wrong, you will get a -2 points, and you're trying to get to various different scoring barometers, which are right here on the back. But honestly, we just played it with my classroom, where you just keep playing and you try to beat your previous high score, but it's mostly about having fun more than the high score for most people. But hey, that's your mileage may vary thing. Let's show you exactly how the game is played. So first thing you're going to do, you're going to flip over the sand timer. Everybody's going to have 3 cards in their hand, and then someone is just going to randomly start telling the story, and it could be about anything you want. So I was dreaming, and I was in the magical land of popsicles, and I was dancing in the magical lands of popsicles, and so then I would draw another card. Now, anyone at the table, not the person clockwise to me, not the person, immediately orthogonally to me, anything like that, anybody can add to this. I could even add the next one. But then all of a sudden, there was a bird, and this bird pooped over each and every one of the popsicles. Apparently, this bird had a huge vendetta against everyone else. So I try. So then the next person might go, and then so I went to my son and I consoled him and I said, "It's okay, Billy. It's okay. We can go get popsicles at the grocery store. You don't have to cry because the birds pooped on all your popsicles." So that would be the next part. And so the next part would be, and as we were leaving the house, there was a note tucked underneath our door. So we were on our way to the grocery store. I grabbed the note and we got into the car and we got on our merry way. So now there's a note, there's a car, we're looking for popsicles. Next person maybe adds to the story. And little did I know, as I stopped at a red light, I read the note and I started screaming. I started screaming, an absolutely terrible scream, because something terrifying was going to happen. Do you know what was going to happen? Oh, I said in my dream that in the future, there will not be regular firefighters. There will only be robots, and robots will take over firefighting, which really scared me because I subscribe to this hot firefighters of the month calendar, and I don't find robots attractive. So I was absolutely petrified about this. So I got on my phone and I texted my mom, who also is a member of this subscription service, and she was equally terrified of this. She was horrified. She was so horrified that she decided to kill her goldfish. And her goldfish, oh man, she killed 16 of her goldfish. And so now the timer has ran out. So what's going to happen is the person who played the goldfish card is now going to flip the card over like this. And they're going to try and tell you not only what this card is, but also they're going to try and tell you what's happening in the story. You're going to try and recreate the story. So let's just see if I can do this. So first and foremost, Magical Land of Popsicles. I had a dream there was a magical land of popsicles. It was a fantastic, fantastic place. So now that I did that, this would actually pass to the next player who would have to tell us this card, which is, of course, about that bird who had a sick vendetta, and he decided to poop on everything in the magical land of popsicles. So I ran to my son, and I consoled him, and I said, "Oh, it's okay, Billy. Don't feel sad that the popsicles have been pooped on. We will go to the grocery store." But as we were going to the grocery store, I opened the door, and there was a note on the door. There was a note under the door, I should say. So there was a note under the door, but I didn't have time to read it, so I hopped into my car, and I started driving. But then when I got to the stoplight, I started to read the note, and I was absolutely terrified. I was horrified because I found out that, all firemen are going to be replaced by robots, not sexy robots, instead of, very attractive firemen. So I called my mom, and I told her about this, and she was so upset that she decided to kill all the goldfish. Wow, that was actually really good on my part. Yes, you could be impressed. So that was 2 points, 4 points, 6 points, 8 points, 10 points, 12 points, 14 points, 16 points, which is actually not very good, but with more players, obviously, you would be having more cards there. But that in a nutshell is what you're going to do. Now, what'll happen is eventually, let's just say you forget about what her mom was going to do. So let's just say, "Oh, I remember her mom was really mad, but I don't remember what she was going to do." You can say, "I would like some help," and then one person can raise their hand if they think they know. They can give you an answer, and if that answer is correct, then it would go here for +1 points. Also, if you guessed it wrong and you said, "Oh, she decided to treat her goldfish to a nice steak dinner," then obviously it would go over here where you would score negative points. But that, in a nutshell, is what you're going to do inside of Dream On. Dream On! Alrighty, the Dream On from CMON. What are my final thoughts? Let's go over the pros, let's go over the cons. First, on the con side, game's not going to be for everybody for a variety of different reasons. First and foremost, it's a completely cooperative game, which will turn off some people. This is also the kind of game where the score really doesn't matter that much. It's more about the experience of the score, which will turn off a lot of people. But the two huge aspects that will turn off some people is this is a storytelling game, and this is a memory game, which are very polarizing categories that a lot of people really hate. Now, that being said, there are some things that offset those. So first and foremost, this is a storytelling game, but in actuality, if you're playing at the higher player counts, you don't have to tell any part of the story. That's one thing that I like. And I played this with some kids who just, maybe they weren't as creative because, they sit in front of the TV for 6 hours, so it just stunts their imagination, or maybe they weren't comfortable talking in front of everybody else. But they sat there with their 3 cards, and they didn't add anything to the story, but they still had fun playing it. So you don't have to do storytelling in this game per se. Next, the memory aspect of the game. There's definitely a memory aspect of this game, but it's somewhat offset by the fact that you can still get your team a point just by asking for help. You can say, "I'm not quite sure I remember that. Does anyone happen to remember this?" And somebody with a better memory, or maybe somebody who told this part of the story, can then help you out. And if they help you out when they screw up, then it's on them and less on you. So there are some things that offset both the storytelling and the memory aspect of this game. So I do want to throw that in with a pinch of a grain of salt there, those cons. Any other cons I have with the game, there's no real strategy in this game aside from make the story interesting so people will remember it. But other than that, this is not a strategy game by any stretch of the imagination. This is pure and simple a party-style game. It says 15 to 20 minutes on the box. You could probably ignore that. I mean, you're just going to be going from story to story, seeing what your score is and seeing what the high score is for you. Or you might not even keep track of the score. You might just do it for fun. I don't know. It really depends on your type of game group. Last con I have with this game is that, speaking of game groups, this is not going to be the kind of thing that I think most people are going to play with their game group. Not even as a light filler game. This is definitely more of a family/children/party game type of game, which is not a con for all people, but if you're expecting this to be something you can play as a game night, as late night filler, light filler, I don't think it's going to fit that bill. But moving on to the pros, I enjoyed Dream On. It actually reminded me of another game that I really, really love called, I think, Monster Memory Mansion. And I played it with my son. And it's a similar game to this where you're going to be weaving together these stories about various different animals. It's not one long cohesive story. It's like little tiny narrative is broken up, but you have to remember those stories and recall them. And what I like about that, especially when working with kids, which I did primarily play this game with, is the fact that kids normally are not actively involved when other people are talking if they're not interested in what other people do. So let's just say we play a game together. We're playing a typical game with kids. a lot of the time they will not pay attention to what's happening unless it's their turn. This forces them to pay attention or they will be a liability to their team, and I like that aspect. Any game that's going to help children with their social skills, with their oral skills, with their storytelling skills, with their listening skills is good in my book. And while this is not specifically aimed at children per se, I think this is an outstanding children's and family game. I think it's a better that game than a party game. Now that being said, I did play it in a party style situation where people were drinking and we had fun with it. But I put this primarily in the children's and family weight category because they had an absolute ball with this. I remember the first time I busted this out in my classroom. It was like 2 or 3 days after Gen Con. We played it 10, 15 times. Over and over and over and over and over again. And we had kids jumping in and kids jumping out. And as I mentioned, we had kids who didn't even storytell. They just sat there with their 3 cards. And they just were part of the thing at the end where they tried to remember the story. And I asked them, did you have fun with this game? They're like, oh my gosh, I love that game. That game's so much fun. Bring that game in tomorrow so we can play it again. And I want to be like, you didn't tell any story. But it's still a lot of fun for the kids. And weaving those stories together is something that I think kids really enjoy. And it kind of harkens back to something that kids don't do a lot these days, which is using their imagination to weave together a story. I know when I was a kid, I used to be a rocket man, and I'd be out in space, and I'd be flying through the trees, and then I'd find like a dead bug, and it'd be like a giant dead bug, and I'd have to fight it or stuff like that. And kids don't do that as much nowadays, especially the older kids that I was working with, the 7 to 10-year-olds. Some of them have great imaginations, but a lot of them still do not, unfortunately. And this kind of taps into that, which I really, really like, especially as a teacher. So I feel like I'm getting a little bit long-winded here. But in the end, Dream On, I enjoyed this. I'm going to keep this. As a teacher, I think this is an amazing game to have. As someone who wants to play it with my family, I think this is an amazing game to have. As a party game, I think it's an okay to good game. But as a family and children's game, I wholeheartedly recommend Dream On from CMON. If you're looking at it for something else, though, probably not going to fit that bill. You know, lightweight filler game, game night game, I don't think this is going to fit in there. But if you're looking at it for children's, family, or party, then this one definitely might be one you want to check out. So that is Dream On from CMON, one that I really enjoyed and will be keeping for my classroom. If you enjoyed this review, please be sure to click on that subscribe button down below in the comments below. Let me know. Do you remember your dreams? Oh, no, I don't. I hate it. I hate the fact I hardly ever remember my dreams, and it drives me nuts. So when I actually do remember my dreams, maybe once or twice a year, I really cherish that, and I leech onto it. I tell everybody about my dreams the next day. My wife knows it. Like, she knows now just to listen, because I'm super excited that I actually remember my dream. But no, I do not. I think it's the fact that how I get up is as soon as my alarm goes off, I'm in the shower within like 40 seconds. Like, I am up, I'm in the shower, got the cold water, I get the cold water blasting on me first. So yeah, I do not, unfortunately, remember my dreams. But do you remember your dreams? Let me know in the comments below, and as always, thanks for your time, YouTube.